And when they're not dancing, crying, screaming, shrieking, or whining, they're singing.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
The rain don't negotiate. The wind don't negotiate. The fire don't negotiate.
Looks like it might be a long night. You know I ain't going nowhere.
Somehow they still do not get how none of the above is a solution to the problems that Americans are dealing with today. Joining us now, Senate Finance Committee member, the Senator from Oklahoma, James Lankford. Senator, I will give you a moment to comment on Spartacus. He is just a few minutes, well, about an hour and such away from the longest speech on the Senate floor. Would you like to comment on Spartacus, Senator?
You know, I first want to comment on the singing that just introduced me coming into that. That was quite a way to be able to introduce this. Obviously, every senator has the right to be able to come and speak as long as they want to be able to speak. He has a right to be able to say it. We are pleased every time Democrats step up and speak for a long time because the American people can actually hear exactly what they're for. And Cory Booker's a really nice guy. If you visited with him, you would enjoy getting a chance to be able to visit with him. He and I just disagree on policy. And the more he talks about his ideas, the more the American people can go, yeah, that's why we voted for President Trump.
That is awfully kind of you and the absolute antithesis of what I would have said. Bless you. Senator, what do you know what do you know about less than 22 hours from now we're going to get on what I'll call Tariff Deliverance Day? What have you heard? Can you tell us anything?
Yeah, we're hearing only bits and pieces of it, as you have already mentioned, on reciprocal tariffs, that if a country puts high tariffs on us, we're putting high tariffs on them. As you know, there are a lot of American products, for instance, our automobiles, that other countries may have 10, 20, 30% tariff. Their automobiles coming into the United States, there's a 2.5% tariff. And it's been that way for a very long time. So the president's saying enough is enough. If you're going to block our vehicles from coming out, or our products, or our agricultural products, whatever it may be, we're going to actually push back on this. So I think there are a couple things happening right now. The president's trying to be able to get tariffs down globally, but he's also trying to say, if you've historically put tariffs on us, we're going to put tariffs on you and see how that feels. And I do have to laugh every time I hear Democrats say Trump is going to drive up the cost of everything. And I think, have they forgotten the last 4 years of President Biden, when literally we had 20% inflation over the course of Biden's 4 years? Biden literally drove up the price of everything with the inflation that he created. President Trump is not coming in to create inflation. He's coming in to stabilize prices on the
Okay, but Senator, tariffs do add to the cost of products. They get paid for by consumers and producers in some combination. Are you expecting these to roll in and cost $600 or $700 billion, 2% of GDP? Or do you think we get an announcement tomorrow that Canada and the U.S. and others have agreed to lower all their tariffs?
So here's what I hope, and I don't know anything else on this. I hope the president's actually laying this out as a negotiation, and as he's done in the past, he dramatically changed our trade with Japan. That happened during his first term when he threatened a whole bunch of big, tough tariffs. Japan came to the table on this. Tariffs have already come down from Vietnam when the president threatened a bunch of tariffs, so they've lowered their prices. Modi, the prime minister of India, has already come visit with the president and said, okay, let's talk about our high tariffs into us. That actually helps American consumers. If we have high tariffs and they're thrown out flippantly, which I don't expect the president to do, and other countries then reciprocate, you bet we'll have higher prices, and we'll have higher prices on a lot of things. But what I've seen the president do in the past, whether it's Canada, whether it's Mexico, Japan, Vietnam, India, the European Union, is his focus has been, how do we get prices down and their high tariffs on us down, and for us to be able to have real income coming in the United States.
And to put it all together, it is the bigger picture of the Trump policy. And to quote Larry Kudlow, it is trade and tariff diplomacy. It is deregulation, and it is tax cuts, and it's spending cuts. And on that note, Senator, this week, the Senate is moving to approve a resolution or a framework on the one big, beautiful bill. Can you tell, it seems the trickiest part of this is the spending cut piece of it. Will there even be a dollar amount of the spending cuts attached to this resolution? Because you're starting to hear from people like Jim Justice, Josh Hawley, even Tommy Tuberville about, oh, don't you touch Medicaid, which you're not. I mean, that's the very essence of the spending cuts that the House Republicans have talked about and have moved forward with.
Yeah, so there will absolutely be spending cuts. We have $2 trillion in overspending just this year, $2 trillion. And for anyone to step up and say, hey, I want to keep spending like this forever, is ignoring the reality of where we really are. So we do have to look at our spending. Now, I do have to warn you, when the Senate bill comes out, the way the language has to be written in this really bizarre way to get around what's called the Byrd rule, which is actually the Byrd law, we have to write a number that's really low. So people are going to come out and just say, oh my gosh, the Senate's going to cut almost nothing on spending. That is not true. We want to reduce spending for the American people by a significant amount because a lot of their tax money is being wasted. But the way the bill will be written, it will show what's called the floor. We have to cut at least this much, but we were going to actually reduce spending significantly more than that. So there's going to be a lot of back and forth on this.
What's the floor going to be? Can you give me a number?
Oh, the floor will be low. It'll be in the low billions. It's not going to be in the upper billions it's going to be in the low, because we have to be able to shoot past it and make sure in every single committee we far exceed what that is.
We need
based
some,
on all the scoring
we need
rules.
some trillions. We
Yes,
need
100%.
some trillions.
100%. We need trillions because it'll be counted over 10 years. So we will have trillions of dollars in reduction of spending, but it will come out on the paper saying billions. But that is only the janky rules that we have in the Senate process to actually get that through. And as far as Medicaid, I can already tell you the Congressional Budget Office has already identified tens of billions of dollars in waste in it. The Wall Street Journal came out just last week talking about how many people and insurance companies are paid twice for the same person because they may live in Oklahoma, then for some reason move out of state. And if no one ever wants to leave Oklahoma ever, but if they were to move out of state from Oklahoma, they literally get paid for 2 different states because in the same year they lived in 2 states. So there's all these crazy things that are happening in Medicaid that are wasting taxpayer dollars. We better look at those things because the American people expect us to actually be careful with how their money's being spent, and it's not right now.
That's right. And what they also need is an extension of those 2017 Trump tax cuts, especially with tariffs coming in. We need an offset to that. We need pro-growth policy. But now, Senator, I'm sad to say we're hearing rumors about maybe individual rates, maybe the corporate rate going up. Is that possible, that is the result of this?
No, it is not going to be possible. I can tell you, I don't know who all's giving you information back and forth, but the Senate's pretty dug in on this. The corporate rate's already locked in, and that's a permanent rate now. It doesn't require any kind of vote on this. But the other rates for individuals are actually the small business rate and other individual rates. We need to be able to lock those down. Otherwise, we're going to have a giant tax increase on small businesses and on the American people. In fact, the tax piece just alone right now, if we don't act, all those folks, as Biden used to talk about, there are $400,000 and down. That's about $2.5 trillion of tax increase on just that group of people that are $400,000 and down. That's the vast majority of Americans, and they're going to pay a lot more in taxes on that. That is painful for them with what's happening in inflation during the last 4 years of the Biden administration. So we can't allow that. The focus is, how do we lock the rates down? How do we keep them solid and consistent? So it would take an act of Congress to change them, not just a turn of the calendar page. Right now, they expire in January of next year. It's the calendar changes our rates. We don't need to have that. We need to have congressional action if they ever change again. Let's get them locked down.
Senator, before we go, Joe Biden insisted that he had to have legislation to secure the border. But now we have seen how dramatically border crossings have just collapsed with no congressional action, just action by President Trump.
Yep. Huge change on this. When I worked on the border bill a year ago, half of that bill was cutting off funding to the White House until they took action. The other half was closing loopholes in the law that have existed for decades and decades. Quite frankly, many of them President Trump asked for in 2019, and Congress refused to be able to help President Trump in 2019. I've always said a different president is going to enforce the law differently, but a future president, we don't know who's going to be president 5 years from now, 10 years from now. We need to have the strongest, tightest law we possibly can, so a future president can't game the system like Joe Biden did.
Yep.
So grateful President Trump is there. We actually have in the 200s range of people trying to cross the border a day. When Biden was there a year ago, 12,000 people a day were illegally crossing our country. So huge difference in implementation, but we still need to lock down the law, because 5 years from now, I don't know who's going to be president. I want to make sure we never have another time like we had last year.
Yep. Okay. Thanks very much, Senator.